looks like we are live.
Still loading, but yeah.
It says live on YouTube on my page.
Yeah, it says it's
We're
streaming
good?
online as well.
Okay.
Now we're live. So I just reached Marissa and she's not going to be able to join us today. She thought the meeting was at 5 o'clock, so she has not had time to review any of the materials. So she's going to not be joining us for this meeting.
So should we do a roll call?
Sorry, Marissa Gilbert is absent. Derek Rosenbaum,
Here.
Rick Perry, Reg Carter,
Here.
Kurt Gervich,
Here.
Loretta Rietzma.
Here, so if we vote today, will we be able to do that without Marissa?
We do have a quorum present. As you may recall, Marissa was a very outspoken person when we were, or a board member when we were going through the prior comments. So it's ultimately up to the, technically, yes, you are permitted to vote. You have a quorum. It's just a question if you feel that you need her input or not. It's not necessary. It's just I was just acknowledging she has been very vocal in the past.
So I agree with Dean. I think Marissa is key to, she has played an important role in reviewing this project and been vocal in the past. And I think that she should be a voting member of this board. I also think that this board needs to kind of stand in solidarity with the zoning board, who is our sister board, and that we probably shouldn't take any action or make any movement on this project until the issues between the Common Council and the zoning board are resolved, because that has the potential to undermine any progress that we might make.
Well, we already established we can't take any action on the site plan or the PUD and the minor subdivision, but we can finalize the finding statements.
That would require Marissa. I mean, it doesn't require Marissa, but I'm suggesting that we not move forward on that without Marissa.
Okay. So we can go through this as we had planned. We have the opportunity to do that. We can decide to vote on them if we want at the end, or we can wait and vote once Marissa has a chance to take a look at everything. But there's not much that's going to change as far as I can tell. I mean, there might be, Dean, I guess a question for you. If we finalize and vote on the finding statement, something changes with the special use permit that might change some language in the finding statement, then what do we do?
I mean, we're speculating what could happen, and I'll invite Mark to comment as well. Basically, if there's a substantial change to the project that triggers a further amended finding statement, then that could require the Common Council, this board, any other involved agency to issue their own amended finding statements. But we don't know what the future will hold, but currently we are in a position to act because those, at least Prime has represented that those changes that those mitigation efforts that they presented a couple weeks ago are the current status of the project. So can't predict the future based on what we have in front of us. It's appropriate to act. If there is a substantial change to the project in the future, we would have to, this board and the other involved or lead agencies would have to address that. Mark, anything else to add there?
Yeah, two things. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, two things. One, yes, what Dean said is true. That would also be true what Dean said, even if there were not ZBA involvement and variances needed, meaning if there were no variances needed and ZBA involvement wasn't even in the picture, but there were substantial modifications to what's being proposed that influenced the site plan, if it had been approved as approved, then you would still need to revisit. You would need to revisit under those circumstances what Dean described as material changes, regardless of whether there's ZBA involvement or not. So yes, he's absolutely 100% correct. And the other thing is, our role is pretty limited here. It's just limit the potential legal vulnerability or legal exposure of the planning board, or actually give advice in that vein as best we can. We don't control anything, we just give advice. But we would be we would very much not advise any board ever to purposely slow down or cease its application processing or review process merely because another board is having some issue. So, I mean, applicants are entitled to due process, and applicants are entitled to review of their application. So we would suggest in pretty strong terms, let's not create more, our advice would be don't create yet more legal vulnerability than already exists by slowing down or ceasing planning board review of things that are legitimately on the planning board's review table, regardless of their outcome, just because something has happened at the ZBA that has bogged down the ZBA process. We think that's actually pretty important.
Yeah, and I guess I tend to agree that we have everything we need at this point to be able to move with what we can move on. There's no reason for us to slow that down and do any of that. But I think at this point, what we can do today is at least go through this, get it. It's pretty, from the way I read it, it's pretty well, I think, figured out. There's still some tweaks I think to be made, but we get those done, and then if Marissa has a chance to look at them, I mean, we can take action, or we can wait to take action until right before we actually vote on the prime application itself, which I think we've talked about in the past, just because if there are minor changes, different things we might need to tweak in the statement, we can do that when everything's finalized and actually ready to be voted on for the actual prime application.
Is this a vote that's going to require the supermajority?
The finding statement,
Yeah.
Dean?
Apologize, I know I've looked into this. Mark, do you have that answer offhand? If there's a disapproval from the county planning board, does that trigger a supermajority for every aspect, including the secret review, or just the final site plan vote?
The legal language in the statute that creates the supermajority requirement says something like, and I'm not pretending to quote it verbatim, but the gist of it is, the project can't be approved without the supermajority. It would be highly, highly, highly unusual. I don't think we've ever seen this happen anywhere, where a finding statement, the vote is different on the finding statement and the ultimate decision. In fact, one could argue that a finding statement, if a vote was different on the finding statement than the ultimate decision, that in itself might be subject to successful challenge as arbitrary and capricious. So and we're big on conservative advice, as is hopefully pretty apparent, in terms of minimizing legal vulnerability. So our suggestion would be that both votes be treated or be considered as subject to the supermajority requirement. Again, it would be largely unheard of to have a different vote on the finding statement than the ultimate approval, because the finding statement and the ultimate approval kind of go hand in hand.
Okay.
Okay.
So
What,
I guess,
my follow-up to my question is, would it not be a question to pose to the applicant that not having a full board, do they want to proceed knowing that they would have to have all positive votes?
Yeah, I believe you have established that practice in the past when you don't have a full quorum, or you have a quorum but not a full roster of attendance. You in the past at least have allowed that option to the applicant.
Could I add to that?
I'm sorry?
Could I add to that?
Sure.
That's not just, I just want to broaden the focus a little bit. That's not just a practice of this board in the past. That's a very, very common practice. It's perfectly appropriate to offer an applicant the opportunity to have, it's the applicant's application. If the applicant wants to avail itself of an opportunity to ask a board to adjourn its consideration or postpone its consideration, that's an opportunity that should always be afforded to an applicant and should always be honored. The other thing, in reference to what somebody asked, I can't remember who, you can't really make a commitment right now, this minute, to necessarily vote on the finding statement today at this special meeting. You can make a commitment to consider doing that, but you don't know how a vote would go, even if you decide you're inclined to vote today. Remember that a vote may not, any motion in any direction or another may not achieve enough votes to be an adopted motion. So if a motion is introduced and it doesn't get enough votes, then it would, you can think you're going to make a decision today, but end up not doing that, and then revisit it anyway when you have more members present to get a motion that will carry enough votes. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and I think the question's appropriate to ask of the applicant. Do you want to proceed knowing that you need the 4 sitting members today to vote in the affirmative for your application? Did I state that correct, Dean?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's up to Prime as to whether or not they want us to proceed.
Right. I guess at the very least today, I guess in my mind, we could, with the changes that have been made that Prime has made to the application, those have been put into the finding statement, updated. We can go through that, look at everything, see if it looks the way we want it. I agree, Marissa's been a big part of this, and it'd be nice to have her input. And I think I'm remembering now back to one of these finding statement meetings, and kind of what Mark was saying, that things still could change just with the application between now and when we finally get to the point of taking action on the Prime application, that we may want to wait to vote on the finding statement the same time we vote on the actual application, because at that point there won't be any more new information at that point. That'll be it. We'll have everything finalized in both statements. So I think today we can at least go through it, see if everyone's okay with what's in there, tweak anything we need to, let Marissa look, and then when we get to the point of where we're ready to do the resolution on the application and vote on that, we can have the finding statement finalized at the same time. And then the voting on it today will be a moot point. Is anyone against that on the board?
I'm not against it, but I think it's appropriate to ask the applicant
Yeah.
Whether or not they want to proceed today. Regardless if we're voting or not, they have the option and in right that each voting board member has the opportunity to hear the testimony live and in person, whatever. Remembering the days from the zoning board, it was a practice that we had taken seriously, and I just think it's appropriate to do that.
Okay.
I agree with Rick on that. Again, Marissa does bring to the table important questions and important questions. And that certainly, I think Prime would want to be able to address as part of the discussion. I'm all for having a meeting today, but if Marissa's not here, I agree that her voice is an important one in this process and has been an important one. And Prime may well want her voice to be a part of the discussion that goes on over this.
Yeah, whether any of us are here or not, I think the applicant is afforded that opportunity regardless of who's sitting here. And I think the question's appropriate.
So I'm sorry, do we not want to go through the finding statement and finalize them without Marissa? Is that the consensus? So we want to postpone this meeting altogether? Or
I
just the
think-
vote?
My feeling is if the applicant wants to proceed, we're all here. We made the commitment to sit in on the meeting. We'll proceed. If the applicant says, no, we'd prefer the full board, they're afforded that opportunity and it should be granted to them.
Well,
Yeah, if I
This-
if I could just say, I think Milana, I think what Rick's saying, Rick, you tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think Rick or anyone else is necessarily saying don't continue to discuss the finding statement today. I think Rick is urging, and I think Loretta might be agreeing, that we ask the applicant, do they want us to continue? Is that the gist of it, Rick and Loretta?
Yes,
I think it's a right afforded to them and that we exercise it.
Yeah, and
Quick
that's a
question.
very
Quick
very
question.
common, appropriate practice.
well, and so the way I approached it with Prime today was similar to the last meeting for the special meeting for the finding statement was it's really a discussion amongst the board. We're going to leave Prime. We're going to allow them to be on, but in the background and only basically speak up if we ask a question of them. But with that being said, I'm still okay with, asking them if they even want us to move forward. I'm fine with that. Reg, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondered if somebody could define specifically when we say proceed, what does that mean? Point by point. Is it just a review? Is it a review and a vote?
Yeah, I think what
Would we
Rick
reschedule
means
a
is
meeting?
that just have this meeting in general to review everything and whether or not we vote at the end, even just to proceed by reviewing the finding statement today to have this meeting. If they don't want us to, and I mean, I've been at meetings too where, the applicant just says, we'll postpone it to next month. Although this is a special meeting, but that was something we weren't expecting, that Marissa wouldn't be here. So absolutely, I think it warrants, we can ask the applicant. So Shalice, Ethan, Milena, whoever, can you guys bring them in and just prime and let them give us their opinion?
I saw Charlie.
Hi, everyone. Charlie Gottlieb. Good to see you. Thank you,
hey
guys.
Charlie.
How are you doing? You can see I'm not at my house anymore. I'm back at work in my office. So,
Woo!
so I've been listening. I completely agree that this board should continue finalizing the finding statement. You all found the time to be here. We have absolutely no problem with that. We would like to have Marissa there for a vote because she's been such a crucial part to the project and to the changes that we've made. But I would think after you have your draft revised with everyone's comments today, that she would be able to take a look at that draft and put in the comments that she feels necessary. And she also has the ability to watch this meeting. So we're comfortable with this board moving forward, evaluating and finalizing the finding statement. Then Marissa can take a look, and when she's available, the board can take a vote. That's absolutely fine with us. The only request we have at this time that the discussion on the finding statement and the approval is limited to those members that are voting on this matter, to avoid a situation where you have an excess of planning board members in the dialogue. So I just would like the board to keep that in the back of their mind, to limit discussion to voting members only. Happy to have this board proceed, but we would like to have Marissa on any vote.
And just to add, speaking for the city, I agree with Charlie. We would prefer, as applicants for the minor subdivision and PUD subdivision application, for the board to continue their review of those finding statements, finalize as much as they can, allow Marissa time to review that, and then wait to take a final vote until the full board is once again present.
Okay. Well, then I think I'd like to move forward at least with reviewing the document or both documents. And unless someone has a problem with that, we'll move forward.
I have no problem with it, Derek, but I think it's important that the applicants are the ones that choose to move forward, and it's not us speaking on their behalf. So, that's exactly the way the process is intended to move forward.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And you brought up a good point. I appreciate it. So, okay. So if, Melena, if you want to, can you bring up your screen and start with the site plan application?
Yeah, Shalice actually has those documents and she's going to be doing the editing today for
Okay.
us. She's going
I gotta step away for just 60 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Derek, before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that Prime did submit some additional changes and suggestions for the finding statement. We do have those documents as well. I don't know how you want to go about reviewing their changes in addition to the ones that I did. If you want to do that after we go through the document, if you want to do it at the same time that we're reviewing this one, it's up to you.
So they submitted what again?
They sent us a revised finding statement with some additional revisions that they're suggesting we add, mostly in regards to parking and materials used for the building, et cetera. So I don't know if you want to, I think we should still use the document that I edited as the base document to work off of. But we do have Prime's suggested revisions as well that we can look at and maybe incorporate if the board thinks that's reasonable.
Yeah, why don't we, do you have the specific ones, you know, which sections they would apply to?
We do, yeah. They sent us a track changes version, so we can pull that up and you can say.
All right, so if you have those, when we get to those sections, we'll go through those sections and then maybe just view what they have.
Okay.
So first thing, I just want to make sure that the rest of the board was able to review the amended finding statement from the city council.
I did.
Everyone was able to receive that and review that.
Mhm.
I just want to clarify, do you know if you guys got the version with 77 pages or the one with 84 pages?
I believe that Matt emailed the latest and greatest version with the IDA documentation, the appendix, ID appendix, to Jim, and then Jim forwarded that to Derek. So I believe the board has seen that version. And that was the only thing that was missing from the version that I sent around to everybody was that IDA appendix at the end. It was just a letter from them regarding their review process.
Well, and I didn't forward that on because I had already forwarded, you had already sent that to everyone, but that's.
And like I said, everything else is exactly the same in the one that I sent except for that appendix. So there shouldn't be an issue with us updating our finding statement today. There'll be no changes based on those 8 pages or whatever at the end.
So let's pull that appendix up at the end and
Sure.
at least let everyone look at that.
Milana, I'm trying to access the Dropbox from.
I'm sorry, it's Melena, everybody.
I'm sorry, Milena. I'm trying to access the Dropbox that you sent with that link for that document. And it says
Yep, I created a new folder, September 28th, 2020 planning board meeting, and I put everything in that folder now.
What was the date of the new one?
Of the newest what? I'm sorry.
That new folder.
The name of the folder is September 28th, 2020 planning board meeting.
Okay, let me see if I can find it there.
Shalice should be able to pull that up as well on the shared screen.
Asking me to pull up the appendix G on the.
Yep.
Yep, 1 second.
Just so we can all look at it together. That way we're all familiar.
So Rick, the other question was, you did get a chance to look at the city council's amended statement?
I have not. I couldn't open it up.
Okay. Well, to summarize it, as far as everything, the way I read it, the finding statement essentially didn't, I guess there were no changes in their findings as far as everything was still essentially a negative declaration, or minimal to no adverse impacts, environmental impacts. So a lot of it was just changing the numbers that have changed since Prime has, adjusted the apartments and all those different things. So I don't think that's an issue. If you have.
Can I just make a comment on that, Derek?
Sure.
Just to, again, just because we try to be as precise as we can, and we're much more accustomed to the language than most planning board members. The finding statement is neither itself nor the result of any negative declaration, and it's not a determination that there are no significant environmental impacts. The finding statement, as adopted by the Common Council, says that potential environmental impacts have been minimized to the maximum extent practicable and mitigated to the maximum extent practicable. I understand how there can be confusion. That kind of sounds like no environmental impacts or negative declaration, but technically under SECRA, it's not a negative declaration and it's not a determination that there are no environmental impacts. It's actually been the subject of a positive declaration, meaning there are potentially adverse environmental impacts, but the finding statement as adopted by the Common Council makes the findings required under the SECRA law, which are that those impacts have been minimized as much as possible and mitigated as much as possible. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of what the finding statement said. That's what it said before, and that's what it still says. Those findings have not been changed.
Thanks, Mark. Those were the words I was looking for. So that's essentially, yeah, that's everything as far as that goes for the Common Council's finding statement that was amended. So at this point, I guess let's go through the site plan application, or what do you have, Shalice or Milena?
Right now, what is up is Appendix G to the amended council GES finding statement.
Okay, so this was that longer document that we didn't forward on, but I'll send that on to everybody. And that was the only change to that, what Matt had sent out? Okay.
Correct.
So this will be included in the next revised edition of this finding statement, so we can, everyone can read through that more thoroughly at that point. And since we're not going to vote on this today, as far as I can tell, we don't need to necessarily read through that word for word right now, but it's a letter from the IDA, you're saying, that explains
Just
the pilot
procedure,
agreement?
the review process, correct?
Okay. All right, so can we pull up? Yep, there we go. So the Prime Plattsburgh LLC site plan application. Milena, you were the one that made the changes, and there's some things in red, there's some things in yellow, and then there's some things that I know changed but weren't in different colors. They were basically just added in and revised. So I guess we should maybe go section by section, and then if you have something that has specifically changed, we can jump in there, and then I've got my own notes from things that I noticed.
Perfect. That's good.
Is there any
And
preference?
anyone else on the board, just,
Is there any preference to do the site plan finding statement versus the subdivision finding statement first?
What's that, Dean?
We have two finding statements, one for the site plan and then the others for the
Right.
subdivision. Any preference, one or the other?
I asked Milena to start with this one because that was the one I went through first, and then I basically marked off the other one, anything that was exactly the same, so that we could kind of breeze through that one. That's the only reason we're going in this order.
Okay, yeah, they're very similar, but okay.
Okay, so first page, essentially no changes. Second page, I didn't see any changes except for down at the bottom, just explaining, the 17,900 square feet of commercial space, 104 apartment units. Anything else, Melina, that you?
Nope, this was just an update to the site plan modifications, like you said, updating the number of residential units, the square footage of commercial space, and the parking changes.
Okay. So I'll just move forward unless someone else from the board speaks up with a question.
So this next page that Shalice has on the screen now, the only addition here was highlighting that the Common Council adopted the amended finding statement on September 10th. So it's just adding that to the list for the procedural history.
Okay. And then just the highlighted sections are pointing out that there's appendix.
Yep.
appendices. Okay.
Yep. So the amended finding statement will now be Exhibit B as highlighted.
Okay. Okay, page 4. So that statement, that was the one that we had asked you and Dean basically to work on, correct?
Yep.
And this is kind of the final idea?
Yep. So nothing has changed since the last time that we edited this document.
Oh, nothing's changed on this one?
No.
Okay, so whatever we had put down, Dean, you were okay with that?
Yeah, again, this came up, again, I can't remember when, but during a prior meeting, and it was designed to do a catch-all to say, in general, we consider our findings consistent and adopt the findings adopted by the Common Council. But if there is any difference, then the document or the description of this document will control. So
Okay.
it's intended to be a cover-all, but it's, hopefully that language is what you were asking for.
Okay. And that incorporates the same language that Mark just mentioned as far as not creating any significant adverse environmental impacts and minimizes or avoids adverse environment impacts. So I'm okay with that. Anyone else have an issue with that from the board? Okay, so we can incorporate that last sentence, I guess, into this whole thing, but I don't know how we want to, do we want to just leave it the way it is so Marissa can see it this way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should leave all of the changes highlighted in different
Yeah.
colors, et cetera, just so we know that was a change to the original document. Again, back to the fact that Prime did send some revisions. I'm not sure where those revisions started. I can't remember off the top of my head. So I don't know, Shalice, if you want to do a side-by-side of that document, or if you want to just pull up Prime's document, because the changes they did do are highlighted, so we'd be able to see what the additions are versus the additions that we did.
I'll try to pull up a side by side.
Okay. That way we're not having to go through this document twice. I just want to make this a little more streamlined for us, so we're not going back through it a second time.
I've got so many windows open. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out which ones are which now. Okay, so Prime is on the left, and our last version is on the right.
Okay.
Shalice, I believe that the Prime version does still include all of the edits that staff did. So I mean, maybe we don't have to do side by side. We'll just be able to see all of the changes. I'm not sure. Yeah, so you can still see the changes that staff did, plus the additions from Prime. So we should probably work off of this document just to streamline it, so we're not going through it more than once.
It would definitely be easier for me if we can scroll through one at a time.
Okay. So it looks like Prime added a sentence at the end of this paragraph, basically referring to the finding statement now as the amended finding statement, which is just a technicality because we did have to do an amendment.
I honestly, I think that let's just go through ours first. That I think that would be easier and get what we have figured
Okay.
out, and then we can go back and we'll easily be able to just go back and see what they've written, and then
Okay.
decide to put it in or
Yeah,
not.
it's up to you. I just wanted to make this streamlined and not.
Yeah, no, I know. Now that we're going through it that way, I think it'd be easier to just
Okay,
Because I've got it in front of me the way we had it, and now I'm getting confused with what they're adding in.
fair enough.
All right, so we were on page 4. Okay, that's where we are. All right, so I don't see anything else on this page. And then under number 1, we just added in basically the citations for the comprehensive plan, the market analysis, the LWRP, and the DRI strategic investment plan. So that's I think fine the way it is. That's basically what we wanted to cite those specific studies. Down to 1C, all we're doing there is speaking to the dates that the plans are modified, the prime plans, because the big modification came, well, they submitted August 10th and it was at our meeting on August 24th.
Correct.
Okay. And then down to G.
Eric, can I make a comment?
What's up?
Up on the list of plans, which I think is A, or just above A there, it's what's in red. There are some plans that the city, well, some of those listed have not been approved, like the local waterfront revitalization plan isn't finished. Is that correct, Milena?
That is correct. It's in draft right now, which is how it's referenced in this list. So I'm not sure what the issue is.
So, oh, that's right. It does say draft. So, but I guess my point is that there are other plans like the Durkee Reimagined plan, where the concept plan for this Durkee site is I would say significantly different from the proposal that we have in front of us.
Which is why it's not listed.
Well, right. But then it seems like we're not giving an objective. I mean, we're cherry picking.
Sure.
We're cherry picking plans that seem to align with this and ignoring others that many of the same people who were involved in the development of these plans also spent lots of time and energy and effort on.
Well, I think the whole reason to list them was just to back up the statement that the plan is consistent with the city's community plan. So of course, you're only going to list the plans that the site plan is consistent with. That's the whole point of this paragraph.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I mean, but then do we need a paragraph that says it is inconsistent with others?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's plenty of plans we could be referencing here, but
I guess why are we choosing to write a subjective document rather than give an objective analysis? What's our role here? I mean, an environmental impact statement should be an objective look at the comprehensive relationship to the environment, but I don't think that we're giving that.
it says that are consistent with the city's community plans. So I'm fine leaving the paragraph the way it is. Does anyone else have an issue with it?
I don't have an issue with it, but I'm going to say something that, I'm going to ask this question to Mark. We had an applicant make a very specific request, and I don't know if it's with legal basis or not, but is Kurt allowed to speak or is he not allowed to speak? I'm very confused by all this.
So let me see if I can,
response.
let me see if I can address that. Can people still hear me?
Yep.
So here's how I'm going to address that. And I might have addressed it even if you hadn't asked the question, but I appreciate the question coming up. We have previously stated, and we're just going to say it again, that we have a concern. Our job is to try to give advice that minimizes potential legal vulnerability, more specifically, legal vulnerability of this planning board decision-making process. We have previously explained, and it's not because of an applicant's request. We're not super sensitive to applicants' requests. We don't ignore them, we consider them, but we're not super sensitive to them. We certainly are not just saying what we're saying because of an applicant's request. But we had previously expressed our independent opinion that the member in question would be well advised to recuse himself from the board's review of this application due to prior opinions expressed in different contexts. last we heard, and we may have missed a few meetings here. We may not have been on board on a few of the meetings. Last we heard, the member had, I'm going to use my words, nobody else's words, grudgingly accepted that advice and indicated that he would be recusing himself from the board's consideration of this application. We were very comfortable with that statement because we felt we had achieved our goal of advising the board in a manner that minimizes the board's legal vulnerability. So that's a long-winded, marble-mouthed lawyer's way of saying that we gave advice before, we stick with that advice. Our advice is that the member in question acted very appropriately in indicating that he would recuse himself from the board discussion and deliberation on this application. One thing that's often misunderstood, and maybe it's been misunderstood here, and if I didn't make myself clear when we first gave this advice, I apologize, but recusal means not participating in any aspect of consideration of the application. So any participation, in our view, does create legal vulnerability to the planning board review process. That was our opinion several months ago. We thought our opinion had been accepted, perhaps grudgingly, perhaps not, certainly not criticizing anybody, but that remains our opinion.
Then Derek, I think it's, going to be up to you to not allow Kurt to participate in that manner. And Kurt, this is no personal reflection on you, but it's a reflection on the way we treat applications. And as a matter of fact, I'd asked Shalice to make a notation that when we do our board bylaws, that we include this very language that Mark had stated, so that becomes part of our working body rules and regulations.
Just to add on to that, absent a formal recusal, there's also the discussion we had at several meetings where the level of participation that's appropriate for an alternate member, regardless of recusal. And that was, Mark, I think you had referred to actually a legal article that you had written where it creates kind of a super board or an excessive number of boards where the applicant doesn't know who they're actually speaking to and whether that alternate member is going to have any sway, plus or minus, on the decision-making process itself.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I've actually been at planning board meetings where votes were taken at 8-0 on 7-member boards. And that's not legal. I'm not suggesting that anyone is contemplating that happening here. My only point being that Dean's correct. There are two actual sub-issues here. One is participation by a non-sitting alternate. And by non-sitting, we mean an alternate who has not been asked to serve on the board's review of a particular application. But we're also concerned about potential legal vulnerability of the board member who we thought had previously indicated he was going to recuse himself, which at that time we thought was very, very appropriate.
Okay. So yeah, I guess the last time we spoke about it, it was a bit of a gray area saying, there could be, a few questions here or there, but that seems to be difficult to, for me to referee that. So I think it's best, as far as just protecting the board and the legal liability, to just keep Kurt out as far as adding in any comments at this point. And again, like Rick said, I don't hold anything against Kurt. It's just, I do think it's the way we need to move forward.
So that's fine. I'll accept that decision, Derek. I guess I just want to make the point that we are at this point veering from a discussion about our bylaws that we had several months ago back in February. We're also veering from a discussion that we had previously where alternate members were allowed to ask questions, and we're also now acting without bylaws. So I'll be quiet. I'm not recusing myself, and I had not indicated that I would recuse myself. So I'm not sure of the discussion that you're referring to, Mark, but that's fine. I'll be quiet.
Okay. So we were on.
Let me just make this final point. From my perspective, applicants are afforded fair and impartial decisions. And, we need to respect, the process, whether it be one that we favor or one that we oppose. And that's, I think if we're given legal advice that states that we should not speak, and I've had to recuse myself. I know, it's not easy necessarily to sit on the side and listen to the conversation, but, if our legal advice is that we should not participate, then we should not participate.
And I think that's the advice we've been given today, and that's what I'm gonna go with.
Okay.
So we were down to 1G, unless anyone has questions above that. And that was just a new, basically another letter from the State of Historic Preservation.
Correct. The project resubmitted the site plan to SHPO for a second review because they felt the modifications were significant enough to have to go through that again. And SHPO came back with a response letter basically saying the same thing, that there would be no adverse impacts to the neighborhood.
Okay. So on to page 6. And I didn't see anything on this page that changed, except for just maybe 5 stories in letter H. Wait, are we on the same page?
I'm not sure.
So we should be under 1H should be at the top. Oh, I see. Okay. Wait, why are we so far off?
I have no idea.
So scroll back up to the page before, please. And then that's 1. Okay, you got A, B, C, F. Oh, wait, what's the extra stuff? Oh, that proposed development should be G.
Should be G, you're right. Doesn't want to continue. If we can't figure this out right now, we'll go back and fix the
Yeah.
formatting.
So we'll just go by what, instead of the letters, what they start with.
Yeah, it should hopefully only be
There you go.
underneath one that
You got that
we
one.
have
Okay.
different.
So, all right, that's what got me. Okay. So the proposed development, that's all good right there. Next page. It shows as G where the building height will be 65.
Yep.
I didn't have anything on this page.
Nope, I don't think there are any changes.
Okay, and then number 2, municipal utilities, again, just the August 10th. There was just, well, I think this was added in because we got something from MLD.
Correct. So based on the changes in the number of residential units and the changes in the commercial space, they reached back out to the various departments, including MLD, DPW, et cetera, just to, make sure that they could still service the site, that, the city still had capacity, et cetera. They just wanted to confirm that. So MLD did provide a second response letter saying that, based on the site plan changes, MLD could still service the site and the city still does have capacity.
Okay. There was nothing else in item 2 that I saw. Down to 3. So the parking, obviously the changes that Prime redid their calculations, the number of commercial square footage went up. So obviously those spaces changes, the number of apartments changes. So those were all in accord with the new computation that they had provided.
Correct.
So any questions on this page for parking from the board? Okay, next page. This was all in there before also. And we just changed under I, the zoning requirement, the parking demand, those 4 things. Okay, K just shows 13 spaces instead of 10. So it's really just reiterating what's there. Next page, nothing changed there until we get to number 4. And again, we just added that. Oh, wait, let me see. Under 4A.
Yeah, this was an edit from the first time we went through this document together.
Okay. Yep. That looks okay. Number 5, again, SHPO letter, August 25th.
Yep.
Number 6, recreation and open space.
Again, this was just updating the bulk area calculations from the modified site plan. Just changes in open space.
Right.
Like they're gaining a little bit more green space, not a lot, but a little bit more with the new setbacks at 15 feet.
Yep. So that's just aligning with the new changes. Then under E, you've got the police department.
Derek,
Yeah.
I've just got one quick, and this is referencing back up just a little bit on B
Okay.
about the green space. One of the public meetings where we got public input, or maybe it was something I read, but there was a concern raised that the open space was not reflecting the downtown, the Prime project. It was reflecting the entire project, that in fact Prime was not creating all of this open space within the context of its building. And so I wonder if there's a way for us to address that in here, because yes, as a result of the entire project, there's going to be increased green space, increased open space, but that's as a result of the walkway going down to the river and the river walk itself. So I'm just, because, I just heard criticism that Prime itself was not on their, somehow within their building.
So Loretta, let me just clarify. So these numbers are based on the Prime site plan. This does not include the Riverwalk. It does include the connection from the Arts Park, because that is part of the site plan. That is part of the Prime property. So this is solely, these numbers are solely based on the Prime site plan.
Oh, okay, good, because I know that was a criticism, and I just wanted to make sure that we had addressed that, so that we had laid that to rest. That in fact, okay, good.
I believe that.
Just very, very briefly, and it's important to note this is within a PUD, a planned unit development, which does give you that greater flexibility for managing green space, all those details that you would normally look at for a normal site plan. You have additional flexibility with a PUD, which this is within.
Yep, but they aren't looking for a deviation for green space.
Yeah, and no, I just wanted to make sure that maybe someone just said, you know, Prime isn't creating green space, and whoever I was talking to was under the impression, and it was my lack of understanding, that the walkway down from Margaret down,
Yeah, from Durkee, you're right.
yeah, from Durkee going down. I hadn't snapped that was in fact part of Prime's development. So good, thank you for clarifying that for me.
I think in the other statement, Loretta, because that one's the PUD in the minor subdivision, there is a little bit more language about those spaces. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lena, but I thought I saw more information in there about that.
Yes, absolutely. The PUD subdivision finding statement does dive a little bit deeper into the site as a whole.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. I was just reflecting comments that I was aware of.
Okay.
And they've been addressed, so that's great.
Okay, so moving down, I think we were on to number 7. And there were some things added to A, I believe, because we wanted to just clarify that, you know, the top of the riverbank can be seen, but not the actual river.
Right.
Which all looks good. Okay. And then moving down to the next page was the same comment that we had at the beginning of the statement. So that looks the same to me. Again, that appendix will be added, and we'll make sure that gets out the most current revision.
Yep. So I will be sending the planning board a link to the Dropbox with all of the agenda items by Monday, and in the September Durkee Street project folder, you will have all of these finalized finding statements and the amended finding statements from council.
Okay. So does anyone from the board have any more questions concerned on that finding statement for the site plan application?
I just have a quick question, and if what we're doing is our own independent finding statement, what is the significance of the Common Council's finding statement?
I can try to address that real quick. So there's some weird thing happening. So I would say that the whole intention of that is because the Common Council's finding statement was for all of the downtown improvement projects as a whole, the 8 different projects, and the Durkee Street project that you're reviewing was part of that bigger seeker review. So the Common Council's finding statement was a lot, you know, is more holistic than yours, which was site specific to the Durkee Street project and the PUD subdivision. So it was kind of a deeper dive into all of the downtown improvement projects as a whole. So that's why you're referencing that document.
Okay, so it's a reference document.
Yes.
Okay.
So Derek, do you want to go through Prime's suggested edits for the finding statement before moving on to the PUD and minor subdivision finding statement?
Yeah, let's do that. Forgot about that.
We can go real quick. The suggestions are nothing major, out of the ordinary or crazy, so we should be able to fly through them. I don't know, Shalice, if you're able to pull those up.
I'm going to ask a procedural. Are you saying that Prime is suggesting that we modify our planning board's findings?
They are suggesting some edits, so you do not have to accept them.
I suggest we don't. And
Okay.
if we have edits, we need to edit it later, we edit it. But when it comes to our planning board findings, it just doesn't sound right that the applicant's suggesting we edit certain things. I feel comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, just to, I guess, jump off a point Milena made as far as the changes not being drastic. I think part of Prime's goal is to try to make any finding statement as legally strong or invulnerable as possible. So they have some basic, a lot of them seem to be stylistic, just internal references back to other documents so that the record is strong. I don't sense there's any intention to put words in this board's mouth for substantive determination. It was really just to make sure the record was complete. So they're not, in my perspective, just, it's good to hear as many voices as possible. By no means is this board bound by any suggestion, but if they have a good suggestion, hey, we forgot to include a reference to a certain exhibit, it's not a bad idea to take that into consideration for purposes of building the strongest record as possible.
Well, being our legal counsel, if you suggest we listen to it, we listen to it. I'm good with that.
Again, I would agree. We don't take Prime's, I think Mark made a good characterization before where we don't discount it or accept it automatically, but I'm paraphrasing now, but that we'll take all input and we'll give it the credibility or the input that it deserves.
Yeah, and no more than anybody else's. But there's nothing inappropriate about an applicant making the request and making the suggestions, as both Milena and Dean have pointed out. Certainly, not only is there no obligation to make changes requested by an applicant, but you can consider them and completely dismiss them. But on the other hand, as Dean points out, I'll use one of my sort of typically dumb examples. If we had a document that mistakenly said in a few places that the sky was green and an applicant asked us politely to, why don't you change that to say the sky is blue, that would be helpful input.
Rick, I agree. My first feeling was that seems kind of out there to propose those things. And I haven't seen what's in there except for that first statement that we started to go through. But
just so we're clear, we're not saying you're obligated to consider
Right.
the request. We're just saying it's not inappropriate to consider the request completely. You can reject every single one of them if you like, or consider them however you wish. But just so we're clear, we're not saying you're legally obligated to consider them, just that it's not inappropriate for them to ask.
okay.
So do we want to go through the document, and what we can do to make this a little bit quicker is we can add a comment next to all of the Prime editions, and the comment can either say accept or reject, and we'll just kind of fly through them.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's just read through them, and we don't need to necessarily make a decision, and just see how we feel about it, and
Sure.
then not even add it to our finding statement at this
Yep,
point. and
That's
keep
what I mean.
everything
Just
from ours.
maybe just make a note next to each comment.
Yep.
Okay.
Derek, I just wanted to throw out also that, and perhaps I'm off base here, but given that we are muting an alternate member of the board because we don't want too many opinions impacting the decision that the board takes, I think a good point is being brought up that, I don't know. I just want to make sure that there's a clear difference between listening to edits from the applicant as opposed to listening to potential edits by an alternate board member. And I'm sorry if I'm muddying the water there, but I just.
No, I see what you're saying.
You make a good point, Loretta. I think the same way.
Then why don't we do this? Why don't we finish going through our statements all together?
Yep.
And then we can go through Prime if we want, or disregard them. But I think that's why I felt from the beginning, we just, to switch and go just through our statement is easier. Just to keep everything in line with what we've already put down.
At the end of the day, we're the ones who are going to be voting on this.
Right.
And, certainly this represents what we have found to date. And I don't know that, I don't know that outside entities need to be substantiating on our behalf the findings that we have made. I mean, these are our findings. And we're either going to prove our findings the way we found. I don't think we need to make a better case for ourselves. I mean, certainly, you know, if 50 different entities looked at this finding of statement and looked at everything that we reviewed, they'd probably come up with another entire document that we could include here. But at the end of the day, we're voting on our statement of findings and what as a board we consider to be pertinent and important and central to why we're making those findings. And I don't know
Right.
that any more input is appropriate to what our findings, if that makes any sense. And I'm sorry if I'm muddying the water again.
No. And to be devil's advocate, I mean, this whole statement was drafted by, you know, it was a jump off from the Common Council statement, if I'm not mistaken, and was drafted by Planning Department. And then we went through it, added things. Dean and Milena looked at things, and obviously have not added them without our approval. But, you know, so there's already a lot of pieces to this. You know, I'm not against just going through them real quick just to see what they say.
Okay.
If the board feels strongly against that, then, you know, we can just not even look at them. But I think going through them quickly, knowing that we are the ones that make the decisions, we can just do that.
Okay, so
Okay.
the first addition that they have is to section 1. It's just an additional statement about the architectural changes to the building, which was pulling back the mezzanine and the roof line changes. So it's just an additional statement about the architecture. Sorry, that's not me doing that.
Okay, so yeah, just,
Sorry, I missed that. Are we doing the accept or not accept thing?
I think just run through them. I don't think we need to state anything at this point.
Okay. The next one is section N. This was in regards to the original police department review of the Saranac Riverfront walkway. They did a second letter on the 23rd, in addition to the review on February 18th. This was a general statement about the changes in setbacks. Again, I don't know that it's necessary to have in here, but this is just a statement saying that the majority of the setbacks are now compliant with the zoning code. With the modified site plan, the applicant also submitted an updated stormwater plan. This is just an additional statement that the updated stormwater plan still meets New York State DEC regulations. So these are all the major changes were in regards to parking. I think they just added some additional detail in regards to how they came up with the alternate parking calculations. You can see in section E, they just kind of highlighted the hamlet, which was used as the example of how they're coming up with the calculations. The rest of it, all the numbers are pretty much the same, not pretty much the same, they are the same. For requirements from our zoning code and what's being provided. Really the only major difference here is that they're referencing their example project of how they're getting their calculations. And they also reference the updated Chazen study that was part of the amended finding statement. Again, this is about parking calculations and the Chazen study that was updated as part of the amended finding statement. And I think they have one statement about COVID in here for fiscal and economic conditions. Police department, same comment about the police department reviewing the Riverwalk, providing an additional letter on July 23rd. Visual resources. This is additional information in regards to the changes in architecture and the changes in the mezzanine, the building materials, and just a general statement about how the changes in architecture are more sympathetic with the surrounding downtown district. So all of these comments that Prime has added have already been addressed in the finding statement that we previously drafted. This is just some additional detail, like Dean said, just to be over cautious, over accurate. But again, in our finding statement, I think we've hit all of the major points. This is just additional detail they felt, maybe we would consider adding based on the modifications.
Now, were those added to the amended city council findings?
All of these references are, yes, included in the city's finding statement. So if you go through the amended finding statement that the council adopted, it does go into greater detail than ours in regards to all of the updated studies that were conducted, et cetera. So there's nothing that Prime is adding to this that doesn't already exist in the Common Council's amended finding statement.
All right. I think we're okay to move on to the next finding statement for the minor sub and the PUD. So I've got the side by side in front of me where I've kind of noted which ones are exactly the same statements as are in the site plan or similar, and which ones are different. So we can kind of go down through, which should make it quicker just to see what's different in this one.
Perfect.
So page 4, I don't think there's anything there. Page 5, B1E. So A, B, C, and D are all the same as what's in the site plan statement. E is different. And that was just included because this is the PUD statement.
Correct.
F is also different. But again, we added that, I think, because we wanted to state the specific section of the zoning ordinance.
Yep.
So we got that in. Rick, that looks good as far as you know.
Yeah. Looks good.
Okay. Next one is G. That one is also different than the site plan statement. Let's see. Nothing out of the ordinary there. We just had to revisit when conditions are finalized, but again, that's going to, that may hinge on zoning board too, but we can leave that highlighted because we'll have to see. But as far as the materials that we've been presented for.
All right, everyone, I'm sorry, I've had somebody walk into the office. So Melina, can you take control of the screen for a minute? Here, I'll try to give you control.
Okay. So I don't know how to do that.
While that's happening, I just want to, and I got lost as you were scrolling through on the copy that I had gone through. I had made a note that on 2, aquatic and natural resources. Did we already go past that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay, so I accidentally got
Sorry,
it.
guys, I got distracted and lost. Please let me know where I'm supposed to be right now.
Okay, we're on page 6.
Thank you. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
That's
Sorry.
okay. I'll call out where we're at, I guess so everyone knows.
So I did do one minor update on this page, which is section I on the screen. I just added in the reference to the stove brick material that has replaced the metal cladding. That was really the only change in building materials section that I updated.
Okay. So yeah, on G, I guess the way I took it at this point, we don't have any more requests to the applicant to change materials, so that, everything seems to be okay at this point. As far as I know with the materials. H is the same as in the site plan document. I is different. So that is what you just spoke about, Elena, just the building materials. So again, that was just updated to show what's the most recent materials that they've put in their most recent submission.
Correct.
Which I think looks fine to me. But if anyone else has any additions to that. So Jay, that's the same. Go ahead, Reg.
I'm sorry, Kurt. Thank you. Is that actually stove brick or should it be faux brick?
I believe it's stove brick.
Stove brick.
Stowe is correct?
I think it's an acronym
Okay, thanks.
or something.
Yeah, I can spell it out.
So letter J is the same as in the site plan. K is the same.
Eric,
Yep.
I had a comment, on K, the building height, 65 feet tall, with 5 stories, 1 level underground. Is it going to be 65 feet from the ground floor up, or does the 65 feet include the garage level below?
Ground floor up.
Okay,
So is that ground floor at the lowest elevation?
I believe so, yes. So from the east side of Bridge Street.
okay.
Okay.
The building will not be any taller than 65 feet on any part of the site.
Right, but that does not, the 65 feet does not include the
Underground
underground.
parking, no. That's
Yes,
from the
okay,
ground
I
up.
just want to make sure that was clear.
Well, at that lowest point on Bridge Street, you are at the parking garage level, correct?
You are, that is correct. You are on the,
No, you're on the first floor of the garage, and the garage is going to go under that level.
well, the main entrance to the residential section of the building will be along the river walk now, which will be at the lowest part of the building. So yes, the parking garage will be underneath. There will be surface parking still.
There will be surface parking within the
Regardless, 60
building
feet
itself,
to
but
the ground
but it
up.
then goes underground again.
Correct,
So there is an underground floor.
yes.
In addition to, on the ground floor, there is parking on the, I believe it's the south side
Yes,
of the building.
So do we want to just clean that up? Stating that the building height will be no higher than 65 feet tall from the lowest point at ground level to the top of the mezzanine.
yep, we can have that detail in there.
That would be good. That would be good.
We'll add that to the site plan document as well.
And
Should
five,
you want to add that language there so we can remember to go back?
Sorry, can you repeat that one again?
so the building height will be no higher than 65 feet tall from the lowest point ground level to top of mezzanine. Will be no higher than 65 feet tall from the lowest ground level point to the top of the mezzanine.
Typically that would be identified by the adjacent grade.
Okay,
You would take your measurement from the adjacent grade. And in the city building code, city zoning ordinance, it's to the mean height, which is the average height between the soffit and the ridge. You take the mid-range point, and that's the height that
oh, okay,
historically measurements were taken from. I can't say that the 65, that's what it means. But historically, that's where the interpretation would be. Adjacent grade to mean height.
okay. Well, and we should verify that with
Should, yes.
Brian.
I believe when Steve was explaining that, he did go into detail that it was the mean height of the top story from adjacent grade. I vaguely remember that conversation happening. I know we've had a million meetings with them and had some pretty major modifications, but I do remember that conversation with Steve and him explaining how they came up with the 65 feet.
All right, so are we, if we can just reflect that, I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
I say that because I've had people coming up to me talking about the skyscraper that they're
Yeah.
going to build downtown.
Well, they're still within the ordinance as far as the height
Oh, absolutely. But it's just,
and number of
to hear the word,
stories.
to hear 65 feet from the ground, I mean, if it was even less from ground level, I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified. What
Right,
exactly.
no, that's good. And I think it's just, it's a matter of getting it right for the finding statement.
Yep, so we'll confirm with the architect and throw some language in there that matches our zoning code
Okay,
and clarifies that.
That would be appropriate.
Just to clarify, in my mind, essentially, we're talking about the northeast corner of the building when we talk
Yep.
about this dimension.
Correct.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so L, that was not exactly the same, but similar to 3 different bullet points in the site plan. And I think it explains what we want it to explain.
Usually, I just noticed in M, can you add draft in front of LWRP? Thank you.
So M and N are new statements that were not in the site plan.
But nothing has changed since the last time you
But
reviewed the
nothing's
document.
changed, right?
Nope.
O is the same as what's in the site plan, and then you've got P, Q, R, S, T are, nothing's changed, but they weren't in the site plan, so those are ones we didn't look at in the last one.
Okay, I had a comment on 2H. Blasting is not anticipated at this time.
Okay,
Okay, I remember that we talked about, and it's not reflected in the language here, that if blasting is required, also notification to the city will be made prior to any blasting occurring. We talked about that, and I don't see that reflected here, and I didn't pick up on it anywhere else.
I can't speak that without reviewing it, but I want to assume that the DOT engineering manual will require procedures to notify all of adjoining owners or.
Oh, okay, because yeah, I remember we had talked about it, so okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I would assume the same.
Okay,
Well, we can check on that, and if it's not the case, then yeah, certainly we'll add that requirement.
yeah, I just remember we talked about it and wanting to make sure that if blasting does happen, that the city would be given advance notice.
Okay.
Yeah, so this whole section, aquatic and natural resources, isn't in the site plan, but I didn't see anything that needed to be changed. So on to municipal utilities, A was just added the same way as it was in the site plan document
Correct.
from MLD. The second A is the same. B is the same.
Shalice, for some reason, D and F do not look like I made any changes to it, but they should have been changed based on the site plan modification. So can you highlight those so I can go back and make sure that those numbers are correct? I'm not sure why they're not showing track changes, but. And also F as well.
Yeah, I was sorry, I was just unmuting myself. This is the document that I was unable to open, so I think there might be an issue with the.
Yeah, I think I did update those numbers, but just to double check.
I just want to point out that in G, there is what's probably a typo. It says Prime has obtained will serve letters. That doesn't make any sense.
So will serve letters are the letters that the project got from MLD.
Oh,
Water and
sorry.
Sewer, DPW. I know, it's.
Okay, got it. Sorry, my bad.
It should be like a dash in between will serve. Well, I don't know if they're supposed to be, but.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. So C, D, E, F, and G were all different than what was in the site plan, but no changes on those from last time. And then H is the same as what's in the site plan. So on to number 4, parking. And it looks like this was all the same as what was in the site plan. And I don't think we made any changes to anything on that end.
No, this is just updating the number of spaces based on the site plan modifications.
Okay, if no questions on that, number 5. So A and B were not in the site plan, but they were here before and no changes. And then C is in the site plan, and we didn't make any changes to that. So number 6, historic. That's the same as what's in the site plan. Okay, number 7, this whole section is not in the site plan statement, but no real changes to this section.
No, I mean, really, if you think about it, the only changes to this document are going to be in reference to the site plan modifications.
Yep.
The PUD is not changing.
True, yeah. So number 8, rec and open spaces. So 8B, that one was not in the site document. just a small little thing. They mentioned the gym space. Was there going to be like a fitness center in the building?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Okay, then I didn't have anything else on this section. And then visual resources. So A and B and C are in this document, but they're not in the site one. But no changes to those.
No.
So on A, if you go up to A, so I'm just looking at the last sentence. The entire eastern edge of the basement parking deck is enclosed and screened by a heavily landscaped base with a landscape buffer that will blend with the Saranac River. Is that just there because of the blending with the Riverwalk?
Correct.
Okay, because when I read it, I started to think, well, the north, let's see, it'd be the south wall is going to be screened to, well, no, it'll just have windows, right? Where they're going to be doing parking now. Yep. But it'll essentially look like the rest of the building.
Correct.
Right.
And will also be heavily landscaped along the walkway.
So I don't think we have to add anything there.
We talked about this, and I don't know if it needs to be reflected in our finding statement. We talked with Prime about the landscaping that they do being maintained, whether it's trimming hedges or replacing hedges that don't make it through the winter, whatever. Is that they confirmed that they would be taking care of that? Do we want that reflected in our finding statement, or is it covered someplace else, or is it just a given?
It might be just a given. I don't think it's appropriate to put in the PUD subdivision and minor subdivision finding statement.
Okay.
We can maybe add something to the site plan finding statement, but again, I think it's just a given, and Prime seems to be pretty committed to the quality of their housing and their projects. So I don't know that it's a necessary add to a seeker review document.
Got it.
Okay. Just on B where it says existing 4, 3, and 2-story buildings to the west, should it be west and north? I mean, and in the surrounding area, I know that includes it, but I know we were comparing to buildings to the west and to the north.
Yeah, you know, interestingly, the latest work being done at the co-op is they've taken off the facing that was on the small portion. Well, they don't own it, but whoever owns it has taken off the whatever product was on the exterior to reveal the brick underneath, which is again consistent with what Prime is proposing as the material. So visually, it's going to be consistent with what exists downtown. That's just an aside.
Okay.
Lisa, do you want to add and north to the?
Yeah, because that would be reflecting consistency to the north.
West, comma, north, and in the surrounding area, I guess. Okay. I didn't see anything else on the rest of this section. So, Melena, just so that we make sure we all have the most updated revised version, should we just all go based off of the Dropbox version from now on?
Yes, sir. I will add that to the Dropbox and send you guys a link on Monday.
Okay.
Can I ask to pick up a hard copy, please?
You sure can.
I,
Do you want us to print it in color so that you can see all of the changes?
no,
Okay.
not necessary.
Okay. This one also had the IDA appendix.
It has the whole finding statement as an appendix, so,
Okay.
or an exhibit. So we will include the latest and greatest amendment to the statement of findings that the council adopted, which includes that IDA appendix.
Okay. Did Prime have anything on this one?
I don't know if Shalice can pull it up. I believe they may have. I don't remember. Same statement from the last one. I have a feeling, I mean, obviously they're only looking at their site plan and only care about their site plan in regards to the PUD subdivision. So I'm assuming that all of the changes they added to here are the same exact ones that they put in the site plan
Okay.
document. Yeah, it looks like they're
Do
all
you
the same.
want to, just so Marissa has a chance to see those too, put that in the Dropbox also, but obviously
Yep,
make it very,
prime in capital letters.
yeah, make it known which one is which.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just thinking as far as Marissa getting a chance to look at these while this is still fresh in our mind. Rather than waiting until the next meeting, do we want to try to do something again once, or why don't we just, we'll get it over to her and I'll coordinate with her and see what she's got. If
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that that she thinks need to be changed, maybe we'll do another meeting to go over them. Just so we can get it figured out before the next meeting.
Okay.
And make sure she gets, yeah, obviously the most updated ones.
Yep. I will email her directly the changes in the documents you guys worked on today, and ask her to give feedback, you know, within a week, so that we can get back together and talk about her changes if necessary.
Well, she should be watching the video at 5 o'clock tonight.
She's the one that suggested noon. This is ridiculous. Anyway.
Okay. Anyone from the board have any further thoughts, questions?
Regarding the finding statement,
Yeah.
not regarding the finding statement, but I just have a very general question. I think Dean can help me with it. Because it's good. Again, it's one of those issues that has me confused. Well, let me think how I need to ask this question. With the city of Plattsburgh being the applicant, does anybody, including the contact person, Matt, have a voice that's binding on the contract with the city being the applicant? I've not seen this very often, so.
I don't understand your question. Well, binding on the
It's
contract.
okay, I don't understand what I asked. The city of Plattsburgh being the applicant, if, say, representation is made, and I'll use traffic circulation as just an off the wall, you know, example. In the contact person makes representation that, you know, we're not going to address traffic circulation. That'll be done in the future. Does he speak on behalf of the city or just himself and his impression of what his answer would be if he were speaking for himself? Who
So,
can speak for the city?
yeah, Matt is a representative of the city. And but the planning board is an independent board. So whether you can weigh the credibility of any statement made by any person at any time. And if it's a credible statement that's reliable, then you can rely on it. Or if it's not a credible statement, you can discount it. So
Is it binding?
Is it binding? I mean, we've been through variations where site plan itself is binding on approval, or certainly conditions of approval are binding. So
Okay.
if this board makes explicit conditions, or there's an explicit reference on a site plan to, a line being here as opposed to a line being there, those are binding on the city, on the applicant.
Okay,
But to say maybe if there's some throwaway statement, if it's not memorialized anywhere and it was just a statement made and it's never documented or required as an explicit condition, then probably not. But that would suggest that that issue wasn't that important to this board. So if something is important, make it a condition of approval, or make sure it shows up on the site plan, make sure it's in writing or documented somewhere. And then, yeah, that would be, I guess it's hard to think in the abstract how this would work, but that's the best I can come up with as far as a condition or some explicit requirement.
If a contact person or the person representing the application makes representation to any question, can the legislative body then come back and say, no, that's not what we intended, and we are the legislative body? I may be adding more complication than necessary, but I'm trying to sort that out of my mind, and it could run in a continuous cycle. I don't.
Yeah, it's hard. There's some concept I've been looking through in other contexts, or the ability of the common council to bind future councils, and there's a lot of case law. There's a lot of discussion on the limits of a current council's ability. Put that in a vacuum. I'd go back to what I said previously, where if this board wants something explicitly done, then sure as hell better make it a condition of approval. Otherwise, it's not going to be clear. So again, if it's this, I don't like thinking in the abstract for this context. I think we should talk about actual scenarios. And again, I'll repeat that point. If it's important, make sure it's memorialized.
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize to Matt because I didn't intend that to be coming from him. But if someone represents the city, is their word truly binding? And I think you answered my question. If we feel that statement is worth including in its permanency, part of the process, then we better make certain that it's identified.
Yep.
I get it. Okay. Sorry, thanks.
So just to, I guess, summarize where we're at with everything as far as this application. It sounds like the county disapproved the application last night. So they've now voted on the most recent site plan that's been changed. ZBA meets Monday of next week. And whether you've read stuff in the paper or know what's going on or not, but it sounds like there may be a holdup there with the issues they've got going on. And then we've got our meeting on the 28th. But at this point, from everything I've been told, and just as far as being advised from legal counsel, both Mark and Dean, it sounds like it's not in the planning board's best interest to vote at any point until the zoning board has taken action on this application. So
You're saying to vote on the applications, right, Derek, not on the finding statement?
that's what I meant. Yes.
Yes, correct. That's correct.
Yeah, the finding statements, we can
Vote on.
vote on those if we choose to at a special meeting, if we do that, or at the next meeting, or whenever. But like I said, I think once we know where everything is finally finalized and we have the resolutions written for the application, we'll have to see, but that may be the best time to get the finding statements finalized too, knowing that nothing will change, and maybe vote on those, around the same time. But I guess my point is just that it's not advisable for us to take any action until zoning board has finished taking action on those two special use permits for the prime application. So be that as it may, that's where we're at. And so I think we'll get Marissa to review the finding statements that we have as of today. Depending on how she comes back, maybe we can try to do a special meeting, or maybe it's just going to be easier to just do it at the next meeting. And if something changes with zoning board and they take action, then we will have the opportunity to take action. But until then, we won't be able to take action on the actual applications. The finding statements we could, but again, that's just a summary of, I guess, where we're at, so everyone knows. Other than that, I don't think we have anything else unless someone has something for today. Okay, then,
Quick one, Derek.
oh, go ahead, Reg.
I just want to ask, we got another meeting concerning the comprehensive plan tomorrow. Is that still on?
We do. I get to see you guys tomorrow too at 12 o'clock, not 5:30, 12 o'clock. I'm going to try to cap that meeting in an hour and a half. We did a similar visioning session with council last week or the week before, and they were able to get through reviewing our existing comp plan and, you know, working through goals, ideas, et cetera, within an hour. So it should be a pretty quick meeting. It's basically just to get your feedback in regards to the comp plan update that's going to be happening or is happening.
Okay. And
Is
we
that
won't-
for the entire board?
That is with the entire board.
Ooh, I missed that one. Okay,
We will send out a Zoom invite today.
okay. No, that's fine. That's fine.
And not that we're planning to, but we won't really be able to go over anything except for the comp plan, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
That's all
So,
we noticed.
yep, exactly. Okay. Well, then, do we need a motion to adjourn a special meeting? Okay. Someone make a motion if they want.
Motion to adjourn?
I second.
Reg motion, Loretta second. Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
You too.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, Shalice. Thanks, Melina.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep, have a good day.